Welcome to another film study episode, and today I want to talk about Nick Chubb's game against Houston. I thought he had a pretty decent game against them. If you factor out that 59-yard rush at the end, he actually had a 3.7 yards per carry average, which is not ideal, and I think Kevin Stefanski's not giving the best opportunities to Nick Chubb. And what I mean by that is that Nick Chubb is not being given the opportunities that will help his running style succeed the most. So let's talk some film. So this is Nick Chubb's second run of the day on the Browns' opening drive, but what's really interesting to analyze here is the Browns' zone running scheme. And what zone running scheme is you have offensive linemen blocking zones. You'll see a lot of double teams, a lot of movements. You really need athletic linemen that can get into space, whereas with power blocking, where the other scheme in running, is you have guys man-to-man, right? You have an assignment. You won't see many double teams. It's just every guy does their part. But what's so intriguing about the zone running scheme that's really taken storm with Kyle Shanahan and now Kevin Stefanski implementing it in Cleveland is the options that the running backs can take. You have multiple options and holes that the running backs can go through, but that's the key. You need your running backs to have excellent ball carrier vision to be able to see things happening in the running lanes so they pick the right hole to run through. So here on this play, you can see that Chubb has a couple different options. So he can choose to bounce the run outside. That's not going to work because you do have Zach Cunningham, the linebacker, that is able to penetrate those two gaps. And also going into that middle gap would also not work for multiple reasons. One, the tight ends are not in a position to block Zach Cunningham. They're not in a good position to go up and move to the second level in the run blocking scheme. And then Wyatt Teller is actually, his assignment is to block that defensive back / safety that's right in front of him. So Chubb would not be wise to take either of those two paths. So the only option for Chubb is to really hit that cutback lane. He's not a runner that seeks contact. He's a powerful guy. He's a big guy. But he actually doesn't actively run through defenders. He's more of a one cut and go because he can make guys miss. And if you look specifically at the blocking that is on this play, Jedrick Wills, the left tackle, actually moves J.J. Watt, so it allows Nick Chubb to run through that cutback lane. It doesn't full-on engage with him, but just gives him a little touch to make sure J.J. Watt does not crash, so Nick Chubb is not forced to take one of the lanes, as previously talked about, that are not open. Here's another example of Chubb's elite ability to cut back on a given run. Here you can see that there are multiple different options. Again, that zone running scheme. He can choose to bounce it out outside, but that's not a great idea because you do have that defensive end that is leveraging the blocker very well and could easily stuff that. And then Whitney Merciless would be able to shoot a gap to blow up that run. The inside zone option would also not work because you do have two linebackers that are playing the run very well and could easily stuff that gap in the A gap, so obviously the Chubb would not want to run there. So he decides to cut back, and he eventually scores a touchdown because, again, of his elite cutback ability to make quick cuts. And if we go back to that essential block that is on the right side of your screen now, you can see that Austin Hooper, the tight end, does an excellent job rerouting J.J. Watt. And what this allows Chubb to do is it gives him the room to cut back if he so chooses, because J.J. Watt isn't in his face like you'll see in future clips. So here's an example. So this is a stretch run in the middle of the second quarter. The Browns do not do very well on this play. Chubb goes for about a yard. But J.J. Watt is able to blow up this play, and goes into the reason why I think that Kevin Stefanski is misutilizing Chubb's skill set. The reason why this play design is so baffling to me is because you effectively don't give Chubb a cutback lane when you don't block J.J. Watt. Essentially, what you're forfeiting the cutback lane when you give J.J. Watt an opportunity to just sit there and wait for Chubb to come to him. So what Chubb is now doing is he's being forced into a specific running lane, and that takes on qualities of power running, which is not something that Chubb excels at, because again, Chubb has excellent vision and excellent ability to cut back, but he's not a guy that's going to look for contact, right? He's a very powerful guy, but he's not actively looking to meet defenders head on. He's going to run away from you. So Chubb reads his running keys, and the two options that he's effectively given on this play is to bounce it outside. There's a lot of clutter there, so that's not going to work. and to move it inside. And that's also not going to work because the center is getting manhandled by the linebacker. And what I really don't understand about Kevin Stefanski using Chubb in these specific run plays, and I don't know if it's because Chubb's been out and this is what you can use with Kareem Hunt, who can run through guys and isn't afraid to do that. And not that Chubb is afraid to do that, but he's a guy that wants to get into space and make guys miss with his elite quickness and ability to cut back. And when you don't block J.J. Watt, it just effectively strips away the best part of Chubb's game. So it's a really confusing thing when you're a fan watching this game. So one last run that I want to show, talking about that cutback idea. So here it's another standard zone run. You can bounce it outside, shoot up the middle, or cut back. So that's Chubb's options on this play. In all honesty, he should have cut the run to the outside. There was just nothing to it besides that, and as you see, when he moves his foot, and at this point, he's just got to pick one of the two options. Going inside is not the greatest idea because Zach Cunningham will shoot that gap, as well as Wyatt Teller is making a good block, but by moving that defensive end closer, he's going to shut off that gap, and Chubb would not be wise to go there. But Chubb decides to cut back, and that is also not a good idea because J.J. Watt and the safety are going to flood that gap, and Zach Cunningham will also come and shoot one gap over to make the tackle, and it's just a loss, and it's just a really bad play. And again, I don't get why Chubb is running on these types of plays, but again, that's just bad utilization, and hopefully Stefanski can fix that. Now, this is going more to play design. We're going to move on, and I want to talk about specifically the tight ends. I think the tight ends in this blocking scheme are not being used very well, and just the play design of these two runs that we're going to talk about is not great for the running back, Nick Chubb, of course, and it just doesn't help anyone. The tight ends can't block their assignment, and the running back can't gain yards. Specifically here on Chubb's first run of the day, actually the first play of the Browns offense against Houston, the Browns are going to try to run this right up the middle. It's a power run. It's predetermined where the ball is going. There's no decision-making until later in the run for Chubb. And all he has to do is follow his blockers. And this is set up pretty well, except that for some reason, Hooper has to chuck a defensive end, which is normal, right? But then he has to go and move on to the second level to stop an elite run stopper in Zach Cunningham, who's trying to fly to Chubb. And if Hooper doesn't have to hit and chuck the defensive end, he can cut off Cunningham without really having to engage, but just stand in front of him. So Chubb can then cut back and just make everybody miss, because on the horizon, he has that cornerback. 99% chance Chubb is going to make that guy miss, and that's a nice gain, because you do have Harrison Bryant making a crucial block on number 50 of the Texans, and it's just very well set up, but just a baffling, to be honest, play design. Now, this next play I want to show is the same exact play. The same run up the middle that Chubb is going to do. You've got Harrison Bryant flashing across to the other side of the formation. The only real difference is instead of Austin Hooper on the right side as the tight end, it's David Njoku, and he fails to block Zach Cunningham, and it results in the same stuffed run. Again, it's just really hard to make sense of what the Browns are trying to do on this play. You have Njoku hitting a player closer to where Chubb is going to run, and then only for him to move on and be delayed in making the most crucial block for this run play to succeed. It's just poor play design, poor execution, and ultimately that results in a poor use of Nick Chubb. Ultimately, I just don't want to see Kevin Stefanski treat these two running backs, these two elite running backs, differently. You have Nick Chubb, who will destroy you with his elite ability to cut back and just make you miss in the open field. And then you have the power of Kareem Hunt to just keep going through multiple defenders. I mean, he can just run right through you and just keep going. This talent that the Browns have at their disposal, I just don't want Kevin Stefanski to use these guys generically. I want to see some differentiation. I want to see some uniqueness and unique running schemes for each of these two guys, because if the Browns can really find a way to maximize both Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, they are going to be a very tough team when it's snowing, raining, and it's playoff football in Cleveland.